reaching heaven.
6, 5,
Stay alive.
4, 3,
Now you and me.
2, 1.
We're going to have fun. Say, blast off. Hey, Excalibur.
Just drop that bar.
What do you mean? Give and take. Going home.
Side zone.
Check it out, eh? Live alone. Leather legs.
Get in place.
What do you get? Say, back it.
Zoom room.
Cosmic zoom. That's up, Jay. It's Sonic Boom.
Sonic Warrior, Sonic Warrior. You always need a day. You got the power to save the day.
Take a little chance. Slip on through. You got smart no matter what you do. You gotta do for you.
Sonic Warrior, Sonic Warrior. The power is in your mind to shake the planet, to conquer time. Sonic Warrior, deep in space and time. Sonic Warrior, wherever in mind. Nothing can survive the way to stay alive. If we try, you can do anything. Sonic Warrior always takes a chance. Sonic Warrior never say the end. Nothing can survive the way to stay alive. If we try, you can do anything.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Sonic Origins. In the last episode, if you don't remember, we went ahead and finished up Sonic 1, the first ever Sonic game in the franchise, obviously. And that was a lot of fun. I actually had a lot more fun with it than I thought I would. In this episode, we're playing through Sonic CD, or its full title, Sonic the Hedgehog CD. So this actually came out after Sonic 2, because this came out in, I believe, September of 1993, and Sonic 2 came out November of 1992. However, this game comes first in the collection because it is chronologically, like, in the series timeline before Sonic 2. This entire collection, Sonic Origins, is, as you could probably tell by the name, the first chronological event in the Sonic series. And we know all this because recently, like I mentioned in a previous episode, Sega has been, or at least Sonic Team has been taking the lore of the Sonic the Hedgehog games a lot more seriously, because it's something that's quite important to the fans, because unlike something like Mario, the Sonic games are a bit more story-focused, and so that's just really fun that they've been taking that a bit more seriously. There's a lot going on in the gameplay right now, but I'll go ahead and explain that in a bit. Actually, you know what, I'll explain it right now. Right now we're in the first special stage. All of the special stages are going to look like this, and you get here the same way you get to a special stage in Sonic 1, and you do that by collecting 50 rings and then getting to the end of the stage and going through a goal ring. Your goal is to run around and jump into all of the different spaceships. I believe the purple ones are... No. Okay. You just want to jump around into all the different spaceships. And we get our first time stone. This is basically this game's equivalent of the Chaos Emeralds from the first game. There are 7 of them total, and we want to get all 7 to get the good ending. I don't find the special stages in this game all that fun. Just because they could be, like, really difficult and a bit hard to control. Maybe I'll have a bit more of a fun time with it this time around. There is a way that you could get the good ending without actually doing all the special stages, and that is through these like signposts that you can see around the level. Some of them say future on them, and some of them say past on them. You run through the goalpost and then try to run as fast as you can, and if you maintain a high speed for long enough, you can travel to either the future or the past. Yes, this game has time travel in it, and the goal of this time travel is to, you have to travel to the past and break Eggman's machines that he built in the past, and then you can go to the future and everything will be so much nicer. Right now we're in a bad future. I hope I'm explaining this decently. I hope I'm not skimming over it too much, because it is a lot to take in if this is your first time experiencing it. But basically there's time travel. Right now we're in the bad future, and your goal is to try to go to the past and make a good future. I'm not personally a fan of either of these mechanics. I think that the time travel thing is really, really cool because I always love time travel in stories. I mean, my favorite game of all time, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, is technically a time travel story if you think about it. But with Sonic CD, the whole point of the time travel is to try to explore all of these different levels from top to bottom to find that one machine. I'm not too big of a fan of the level design in this game. Ultimately, out of the collection, this is my least favorite. Not to say it's like a horrible game, it's like a solid 6 out of 10 for me. A lot of people recently have been talking about how they really love this game. And so, of course, as always, no disrespect to people who liked the things that I dislike. You're free to like whatever you like. Don't let my opinion try to dissuade you from liking something. That is absolutely the thing that I want to happen the least. That is absolutely something that I do not want to happen. As much as I dislike something, as long as it doesn't do something illegal, I'm fine with it existing, and I'm fine with people having fans of it. I'm fine with people being fans of it. I was kind of mean to Sonic Heroes in my previous episodes. And once again, like I said in that episode, even though I dislike Sonic Heroes, you're free to like it. Just like whatever you like. I'll like whatever I like. And as long as we can just agree to disagree and agree to be civil, everything should be fine. So this game actually does have a bit of a history. Oh, Palm Tree Panic, Zone 3. This game does a weird thing where Sonic already does this weird thing where, you know, in normal games, worlds are called zones and levels are called acts. But in this game, zones are called rounds and acts are called zones. It's very strange. That's ultimately the best way I could describe this game. It's very strange. Not necessarily bad, but just strange. Anyways, we're gonna get to our first boss fight here. This thing is called the EGG HVC 001. And despite the fact that I just got hit there, it is the easiest boss fight in the entire franchise. Just go to the right side of the screen, hit him 3 times, and you win. It will genuinely not put up any sort of fight. Anyways, we got through Zone 3, and we're coming up on the next level, Collision Chaos. One of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of this game is that none of the levels are really memorable to me. Like, we have the first one, which is called Palm Tree Panic. Oh, by the way, Amy Rosa's here. She's a new character in the series. Basically, her whole thing at the beginning of the franchise is that she has a huge crush on Sonic, and eventually she would evolve into a much bigger character. Also, another new introduction to the series, Metal Sonic. His whole thing is that, you know, he wants to be better than Sonic. He's a robot created by Dr. Eggman. I haven't even talked about Eggman's evil plot in this one. It's very strange. Basically, as you saw in the opening cutscene, there's this planet called Little Planet that floats over Earth. And what Eggman did is he chained the entire planet to Earth and just got it to kept it in that same spot. I don't know how he did that. Listen, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure, like, metal chains can't keep a planet in the same spot. Anyways, Eggman also created Metal Sonic to be faster than us. Metal Sonic, actually, I'll get into it a little bit later, but he sort of relates to this debate that was had among Sonic fans about whether or not Sonic CD chronologically took place before Sonic 2 or not. Because now we have like full 100% confirmation that CD is before 2 and after Sonic 1. But previously, there was a bit of a debate because some of the official some of the people who worked on these games said that Sonic CD is after Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And that's very interesting, and I'll explain more about why that is when we get to Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But I do have like an explanation for this, for why why it makes sense for Sonic CD to take place between Sonic 1 and 2. It's not like a completely good and satisfying explanation, but it's one that I think does make a bit of sense. Oh, I was stuck in a wall for a second. So the interesting thing about Sonic CD, there are two moves that I want to talk about. The first one is one we've already spoken about in Sonic 1, the Spin Dash. This is a move that was in the original Sonic CD game, but it was much worse than it was in this one. In this one, it works just like it does in Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, where, you know, you hold down, you hold the button, and you just go. In the original, if you just held the button, and then went, it had a very wimpy, like, spin dash. I'll see if I can put some footage on screen. What you had to do was, I think you had to hold down and then spam the button a million times to then try to make it go fast. So they just fixed that in Sonic Origins because that version of the spin dash is much worse than what we have now. Another move that I want to talk about is the Super Peel Out. Instead of holding down and pressing the button, you hold up and press the button. Sonic does this little figure eight with his feet, and then he blasts off. It's a fun move. It's pretty much like the Spin Dash, but the Spin Dash is a bit better because when you run into enemies with the Spin Dash, it kills them. But if you run into enemies with the Super Peel Out, you get hit instead. So it's kind of like a worse Spin Dash, but it looks so dang cool that I can't help from using it from time to time. So an interesting bit of trivia is, you'll remember Amy from a few minutes ago, how she was just kidnapped. In the original US instruction manual for the original game, she was referred to as Princess Sally. Now, Princess Sally was a character from the Archie comics and from the Saturday morning TV show. You know, the one with the darker tone and stuff like that. And she was basically sort of like a love interest for Sonic. However, in those pieces of media, instead of it being like Amy, where she has a huge crush on Sonic, but Sonic doesn't really reciprocate that, in the case of the Saturday morning show and the Archie comics, Sonic actually did reciprocate that, and they actually dated for quite a while in the Archie Sonic comics. They are very different characters, though, although in the IDW comics you can definitely see that, you know, Amy shares a few attributes with Sally, in some ways. But yeah, they are two different characters. I don't know why Sega of America tried to pass these two characters off as the same person, but we'll just chalk that up to more weird localization. Amy also has a nickname that's only really used in the classic games. She's referred to as Rosie the Rascal sometimes, which is very funny. I forget if I mentioned this earlier. Her full name is Amy Rose. Music in the background is absolutely incredible, by the way. Speaking of the soundtrack, this game has not one, but two soundtracks, depending on which region you're in. This sort of continues the conversation from earlier about localization changes and stuff like that. In Japan and in Europe, they use the soundtrack that I have. In Japan and Europe, they use the soundtrack that's playing right now. But in the US release for Sonic CD, they had a completely different soundtrack, completely different vibe from the original game. The opening cutscene that played at the very beginning of this video, the really cool one, that I believe was animated by the same people who animated Dragon Ball. In the Japanese version, they play a song, I believe it's called Sonic Warriors, but in the American version, they play a song called Sonic Boom, which is a very good song. I think both songs are incredible. The lyrics for the Japanese one are a bit funny, but, still great song. But yeah, all of the soundtracks in the, I personally think that the Japanese soundtrack is a bit better, especially when we get to Stardust Speedway. I forget if they changed that one for the US, but I don't know. I think the Japanese soundtrack is a bit better. I will leave links in the description, however, to the US soundtracks if you want to go ahead and listen to those. I don't think they're bad songs at all, at least from what I remember. Maybe there's one or two really bad ones in there, but overall I thought the soundtrack was really great. Speaking of great soundtracks, let me know in the comments what your favorite Sonic song of all time is. For me, I'm probably gonna say His World from Sonic 06. Completely forgetting about the quality of that game, because I know that gaming journalists have complained about that game constantly over the past 2 decades. That song is absolutely incredible. It perfectly describes why Sonic as a character is so cool. Also, it just sounds great as a song. And it always, gets me really pumped up just listening to it. After listening to it, I feel like I can run through a brick wall. Yeah, even in, even the water levels in this game, have really good music. Oh, I was one ring off from getting a special stage, dang it. I might actually not get the good ending in this time around. If that does happen, I'll leave a link to the good ending in the description. But yeah, speaking of good Sonic songs, there are tons from, the Sonic Adventure games that are really cool. Sonic Heroes, I'll actually give that game some praise this time around. I think What I'm Made Of is one of the greatest songs in the entire franchise. And then Sonic Mania, that soundtrack is really, really good, because it's mostly remixes of classic Sonic songs with a few original songs spruced in there that are also really good. I believe that game's soundtrack was done by Tee Lopes, and he has done some really good remixes of different Sonic songs. I'll leave links to that I'll leave links to some of my favorites in the description. But yeah, every song on the Mania soundtrack was incredible. This franchise just has such good music. I know that everyone has said that at one point, and I've mentioned it a few times on the channel. But my gosh, it's just all so fun to listen to. So we've talked about Sonic music, but one thing that I haven't really talked about on the channel before is Sonic official art. I love official Sonic art, especially ones from the early days when they were still trying to figure out an art style. For the classic games, at least, I forget if some of the more modern games have different box arts. I think Frontiers does, but the classic games all had different, official box arts depending on what region you're from. And Sonic Origins actually lets you choose which box art you want to have on the screen where you select what game you want to play. So you can have the Japanese ones, the European ones, and the American ones. Unfortunately, the European box arts are always, like, a bit weird, unfortunately. I'll show some examples of that on screen. I remember the Sonic 3D Blast one being quite weird. And then I think the Sonic 3 one, the Sonic 3 box art was also quite strange. Japan has some really good box arts for Sonic, and then the US has some ones that, I don't know if I'd say they're better than the Japanese ones, but they're definitely very nostalgic for me. I forget if I already mentioned this, but Sonic Origins also allows you to switch between the Japanese and US soundtracks. They do it in a very strange way, though. The way that they make you do it, if you're... oh, by the way, here's Eggman. Is, if you're in story mode, you have to exit out of story mode, go over to Sonic... go over to Sonic CD in the menu, go into the game, go to the title screen, go to options, change, and then change the soundtrack, and then you can go back to story mode. Which is very, like, strange. I don't know how I would have done it if I had worked on the collection. Maybe, like, when you go into story mode... maybe, like, when you go into story mode, like, right before the first cutscene plays, it gives you, like, a text box saying, Sonic CD has 2 different soundtracks depending on region. Which soundtrack would you like to listen to? It would be a bit clunky, but, you know, I still think the way that they actually do it in the collection is a bit weird. Anyways, we're at the 3rd boss right now. I forget if I mentioned the name of the 2nd boss, but it was called the Egg Tilter. This one is called the Egg Bubble. Basically, Eggman surrounds himself with the air bubbles that you need to grab whenever you're underwater. You just need to keep jumping, ouch, grab the bubbles, and slowly you'll get rid of his weird bubble shield. Funny, he had a bubble shield before Sonic 3. And that's the end of this Eggman boss fight and the end of Tidal Tempest. I just realized that in my notes I wrote down Tidal Tempest incorrectly. I wrote it down as Tittle Tempest, which I think is very funny. Again, goes to show how bad I am at remembering the different names of levels in this game. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. In the next episode, we're going to go ahead, continue on through Sonic CD, and maybe also beat this game. We've got about 4 levels left, or zones, or rounds, or whatever you want to call them. And we usually, from what we've done so far, we usually do 3 zones per episode. So maybe we'll get to the end of the game, maybe we won't. Whatever happens, hope you guys stick around, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!